In round 5 at the FIDE Chess.com Grand Swiss, a complicated battle ensued between Israeli Grandmaster Tamir Nabati and the Netherlands Grandmaster Erwin Lamy. In this critical position, White chooses to take on g7, naturally trying to rid Black of one of his key defensive pieces, especially with the dark squares extended. And unfortunately, the Dutchman chose wrong here, making kind of the only recapture that doesn't make a lot of sense in hindsight. Instead, of course, with total humility, much stronger grandmaster and player than I am. But as we look at this particular position, the one idea White has, and the one reason White captured that bishop, is to play the move d4 next to try to undermine this advanced structure and see what comes after that. The problem is that the only way this move is really that effective is if it comes with other types of tactical consequences to Black. For example, Lamy could have taken with the queen and met the move d4 with f6, where with the pawn structure held together and the queen perfectly spying the square c7 from the knight, there really aren't any tactical follow-ups here. The engine agrees, position roughly equal. Unfortunately, Lamy decided to take with the king on g7 and likely immediately regretted doing so. After the move d4 was played, we suddenly realized that f6 is no longer a possibility because the queen that was supposed to be here isn't guarding knight to c7. With that key tactical point in mind, Lamy follows one mistake, likely with another small one, plays the move bishop g4, and now forces the queen to the optimal diagonal when it comes to exposing the king's newfound home on the g7 square. Again, probably if you don't play bishop g4 and recognize the dangers you've created for yourself, trying to settle with things like ed4 and then maybe a big exchange, you may end up getting some sort of rook ending where White might trade here or even try to keep the queens on the board. But even if White's up a pawn, the fact that Black has the e-file at least gives him some fighting chances still, despite definitely being on the worst side of things in the final stage. I actually analyzed that if this had been the line you go for, maybe we would have seen Tamir Nabati play the move knight takes f4, meaning bishop takes c4 with h4. The key point being that queen takes h4 allows queen e4, threatening knight e6 to win the queen, and then the move rook f3. Now, this was my suggested line as a complicated practical way to try to expose Lamy's king. Not engine recommended. The engine didn't agree with me, but hey, computers, you don't own me or any chess player, and if I think I have compensation, I will sacrifice unsoundly all day. Anyway, that's an idea that I kind of liked. But in the game after d4, Lamy played the move bishop g4, forcing the queen to c3, and after the next two moves, we see that nothing about Black's position has been improved here other than the king has come to a worse square, a very dangerous position on g7. The bishop went from kind of a useful defensive spot where you could simplify to an awkwardly sort of self-trapped position on e2. The position at first glance might seem aggressive, but you're not even threatening to do anything because you lose the bishop on e2. So White calls the bluff of Black by taking e5, pointing out that the f3 pawn isn't going anywhere and now no longer is the bishop, and just pushes the e-pawn forward, brings another piece into the game. b5 played almost out of desperation, but White's not going to let you undermine that knight. And now after one final mistake, Nabati puts the game away with the very nice touche tactic, knight takes f6 and rook takes c2, winning even more material because you can't take back without f6 falling with check. So again, easy to say in hindsight and not to throw shade in any way other than to kind of draw some attention to the obscure decision made here by Lamy. Perhaps time pressure had something to do with it. But when we miss critical points that we can't reinforce our own center because of tricks like knight to c7, sometimes our position can unravel quickly. And that's exactly what happened here for the Dutch Grandmaster, especially when the other rook comes in and we get nice tactics to end the game. Hope you enjoyed this video breakdown. Again, this was a game that, despite the two kind of well-known players, didn't get a ton of love on the broadcast. That's the whole point of these Missed on the Aisle segments. Please check out the entire video playlist on YouTube. If you're watching this on Twitter or Facebook, give us a share. And if you're watching this on the live broadcast and we keep this segment, make sure you go out and check out all the videos that we have on YouTube in case you ever happen to miss them. Remember, we have a big question in store. Who's going to go all the way to take a spot at the candidates, and maybe, who knows, maybe the winner of the Grand Swiss will be the one challenging Magnus Carlsen come November 2020. Either way, we know Anna Rudolph and Danny King will have the call, no matter who ends up being that person at the end of the event on October 21st. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it, and I'll see you around over on Chess.com.